Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So it's good to see you all here. And last week I mentioned we'd be discussing the Vimalakirti Sutra, which is quite a task. It's sort of a boundless, bounding work to discuss. But we'll dive in. And this first chapter of the Vimalakirti Sutra really doesn't feature Vimalakirti. Vimalakirti was a lay practitioner at the time of the Buddha, who was renowned for his wisdom and understanding of the Dharma. But this first chapter really features the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, and Shariputra, among others. And it starts out, the setting is in Amra Gardens. Amra means mango, so it's a mango grove or mango gardens that was actually in Vaishali, a town in northern India. The gardens was owned by a famous courtesan. When the Buddha would go from town to town, he would accept the first offer for where to stay with his venue of monks. And this famous courtesan made the first offer, so that's where they were staying. And it goes right into talking about who's there with the Buddha. There were monks, 8,000 monks, but there were also 32,000 bodhisattvas. Well, you can tell right away that this is a work of fiction. It's an allegory. There wouldn't have been 40,000 individuals there in this little mango grove, in all likelihood. And a work of fiction, of course, is fictional, but it can point to truth. And the question is whether this fictional account can point us to truth. So the characteristics of these 32,000 bodhisattvas that were there in the Amra Gardens with the Buddha were like this. And I'll read little sections of this sutra because I think the wording of it is important. The translation I'm using is that of Burton Watson, which is a translation from the Chinese version that was translated in turn from Sanskrit by Kamarajiva. So they say about these 32,000 bodhisattvas, all were spotless and pure, having long ago rid themselves of snares and obstructions. Their minds constantly resided in a state of unhindered emancipation. Their mindfulness, meditation, retention of the teachings, and eloquence never failed, and of almsgiving, keeping of the precepts, forbearance, assiduousness, meditation, wisdom, and the power to employ expedient means, there was not one they were deficient in. So this is an extraordinary group of 32,000 individuals. And one might ask at the get-go, with all those qualities, why did they even need to be coming for direction, for teaching from the Buddha. Well, there were 32,000 of these bodhisattvas, but they weren't all the same. And their names revealed their special qualities. And I'll read some of these. The names of the bodhisattvas were Bodhisattva viewing equality, Bodhisattva viewing inequality, Bodhisattva viewing equality and inequality, Bodhisattva meditation freedom king, Bodhisattva dharma freedom king, Bodhisattva dharma forms, Bodhisattva shining forms, Bodhisattva shining adornment, Bodhisattva great adornment, Bodhisattva jeweled accumulation, Bodhisattva accumulation of eloquence, Bodhisattva jeweled hand, Bodhisattva jeweled seal hand, Bodhisattva joyful capacity, Bodhisattva joyful king, Bodhisattva eloquent sound, Bodhisattva storehouse of emptiness, Bodhisattva of constant maintenance, Bodhisattva constant exertion, Bodhisattva perceiver of the world's sounds. That's Avalokiteshvara, whose Namo chant we heard at the beginning. So there's a great diversity of these bodhisattvas among the 32,000. In fact, they're all unique. So being a bodhisattva doesn't involve being like everyone else. It involves expressing one's uniqueness, one's unique gifts. And we can apply this to our current setting. There may be the bodhisattva Walmart greeter or the bodhisattva postal clerk, the bodhisattva landscaper, the bodhisattva musician, any number of bodhisattva possibilities. But there were also, as if that were not enough, 10,000 Brahma kings present here in the gardens. Shikshen and others who had come from the other four continent worlds to visit the place where the Buddha was and to listen to the Dharma. There were also 12,000 Indras, not just one. In the Hindu cosmology, there's Indra, the deity. But here, they're accumulated from all the different universes and worlds, 12,000 Indras. So with all these people present, there was an event. And at this time, a man named Jeweled Accumulation, who was the son of a wealthy man of the city of Vaishali, along with 500 other sons of wealthy men, had come to the place where the Buddha was, all of them bearing parasols adorned with the 7 treasures. So each of these 500 sons of wealthy families had a jeweled parasol as a gift for the Buddha. And they all joined in offering these parasols to the Buddha, all 500 of them. Now, the Buddha accepted these But the Buddha had supernatural powers. Now, at that time, and perhaps even now, spiritual leaders are, they gain credibility by having supernatural powers. So the Buddha had supernatural powers as well. And what he chose to do with these 500 jeweled parasols was to turn them into one enormous jeweled parasol that spread over the entire 1,000,000,000-fold world to protect it. So the Buddha didn't collect up his 500 jeweled parasols and store them away so he could sell them on eBay as a limited edition. He chose to combine them all into one enormous protective parasol for all living beings in all the various universes. And then jeweled accumulation goes through several pages of adoration and homage to the Buddha in verse form, which I won't read. But then he gets right down to what they're there for, what these 500 sons of wealthy families have really come for. Now, these 500 sons of wealthy families, that son of a wealthy family or son or daughter of a wealthy family, often that's a phrase that's used in Buddhist texts. And how do we make sense out of that now? I think it's almost like these 500 were, the graduating class at Princeton or at Howard University. They're the future leaders. So they've all come to understand how to live their lives and gain wisdom from the Buddha. So they say, Jeweled Accumulation, who's their spokesman, says, we wish to hear how you can purify the Buddha lands. We beg the honored one to explain the practices carried out by bodhisattvas in purifying the lands. How do you be a leader? And the Buddha responds. He says, Jeweled Accumulation, the various kinds of living beings are in themselves the Buddha lands. The various kinds of living beings are in themselves the Buddha lands of the bodhisattvas. Because the bodhisattva's acquisition of a pure land is wholly due to his having brought benefit to living beings. And the Buddha goes on, Jeweled Accumulation, you should understand that an upright mind is the pure land of the bodhisattva. And then there's a couple pages of sort of explicating that. He says, almsgiving is the pure land of the bodhisattva. When he attains Buddhahood, beings who are capable of casting away everything will be born in the country. Keeping the precepts is the pure land of the bodhisattva. When she attains Buddhahood, beings who fulfill their vow to carry out the 10 good actions, 10 precepts, will be born in the country. Wisdom is the pure land of the Bodhisattva. When she attains Buddhahood, beings who are correct and certain in understanding will be born in the country. So the Buddha is saying, in so many words, lead by example. Lead by example. A modern version of this would be the quote of Martin Luther King, which I'm sure you've all heard. Be the peace you wish to see in the world. Therefore, Buddha says to jeweled accumulation, if the Bodhisattva wishes to acquire a pure land, he must purify her mind. When the mind is pure, the Buddha land will be pure. Okay, now at this point, Shariputra enters the scene. Shariputra is one of the Buddha's followers, one of his disciples, known for his insightful analytic mind. The Buddha, in this chapter, and also in some other chapters, probably throughout this sutra, uses Shariputra as a foil, as a skeptic, as a questioner. And at this time, Shariputra, moved by the Buddha's supernatural powers, thought to himself, if the mind of the Bodhisattva is pure, then the Buddha land will be pure. Now, when our world-honored one, talking about the Buddha, first determined to become a Bodhisattva here in this world, surely his intentions were pure. He's sort of the gold standard for purity. Why is this Buddha land so filled with impurities? Why is it such a mess here? The Buddha, knowing his thoughts, said to him, what do you think? Are the sun and the moon impure? Is that why the blind man fails to see them? Shariputra replied, no, world-honored one. This is the fault of the blind man. The sun and the moon are not to blame. Shariputra, it is the failings of living beings that prevent them from seeing the marvelous purity of the land of the Buddha. And at that point, another actor comes forward, one of the Brahma kings. I think there were 10,000 of them, as I recall. At that time, one of the Brahma kings with the conch-shaped tuft of hair said to Shariputra, you must not think that this Buddha land is impure. Why do I say this? Because to our eyes, Shakyamuna's Buddha land is pure and spotless as the palace of the heavenly being, great freedom. So he's sort of speaking for the other Brahma kings there. But Shariputra is unconvinced. And he says, well, look, when I look at this land, I see it full of knolls and hollows, thorny underbrush, sand, gravel, dirt, rocks, many mountains, filth, and defilement. So at the time that the Buddha lived, and at the time that this sutra was likely composed, around the 1st century CE, it was very similar in many ways to our present time. There were wars and there was pestilence. There was injustice, there was inequality, There was loss, there was grief. There was greed, anger, and delusion. In a very fundamental way, the same as our world. And Shariputra said, I see this full of knolls and hollows, thorny underbrush, filth, defilement. The Brahma King says, it is just your mind has highs and lows and does not rest on Buddha wisdom. Therefore you see this land as impure. Shariputra, the Buddha treats all things and beings, each one of them, with perfect equality. His deeply searching mind is pure, and because it rests on Buddha wisdom, it can see the purity of this Buddha land. So just to make the point, the Buddha then pressed his toe against the earth. Remember, he has these supernatural powers. He pressed his toe against the earth, and immediately the 1,000,000,000-fold world was adorned with hundreds and thousands of rare jewels, till it resembled jeweled adornment, Buddha's jeweled adornment land of immeasurable blessing. All the members of the great assembly sighed in wonder at what they had never seen before, and all saw that they themselves were seated on jeweled lotuses. So, needless to say, everyone was impressed by this demonstration. And Buddha says to Shariputra, it is the same in this case, Shariputra. If a person's mind is pure, then he will see the wonderful blessings that adorn this land. So this land, this Buddha land we live in, with all its troubles, with all its difficulties, presents to the bodhisattva, the aspiring bodhisattva, so many opportunities, so many diverse opportunities to be of benefit. And whereas it contains divisiveness and anger and paranoia, fear, it contains mercy, blessings, charity, and love. Which arise exactly out of these difficulties. So thus ends the first chapter of the Vimalakirti Sutra, called Buddha Lands. And we'll continue on with this in future weeks, but I'm interested. What parts of this, if any, speak to you? What parts of this, if any, seem to point to any truth? So I welcome any comments or questions. So thank you very much.